Welcome back, listeners, to the Brighter Side of Blue. We're on a hot streak. This is Danny.
I'm Tommy.
This is JJ.
Notice the pause. He was sleeping.
JJ,
He was checked out again.
I was thinking.
What were you thinking about?
Nothing.
Oh, my.
Jesus. Let's just move on.
What's the definition of zoning out?
He was definitely zoning out right there. Hey, we're on a little
I
hot
got
streak.
a lot of shit I have to do, so I want to get this going so I can go home.
We only do this every time.
I saved a dog today, too.
Hold on a second. I had an opening, but he saved a dog, and that does take precedent. Can you
I
tell
haven't
us
heard
about
about the
that?
dog story.
Yeah, I was letting my dog out. There's no yard. There's a dog that was off a leash by itself. I did a little whistle. It come running to me. I wasn't sure if I was going to have to shoot it or hug it. I hugged it. Got along with my dog, and it had a collar, no name on it. So Lisa and I went on a mission, and I went and even took it to the vet, see if they could get a chip on it. No. And then so we made phone calls, rocked the neighborhood, and some young lady pulled up in a panic when she saw us with the dog. So we saved the dog.
You
From
saved
getting
the dog.
It was sitting on a busy road. I thought, oh man, this
Jaeger,
dog's gonna get it.
right?
Jaeger, yeah, it's a busy road. So
Like crazy.
we saved the dog.
Good needs, good deeds.
See?
You can cut this whole thing out if you want. But
No, we're keeping this
No,
in
we're
because
keeping it out.
I do have a question about this, though. Because when you start the story, you were mentally willing to whistle for a dog in need, and you just admitted that when you whistled, you didn't know if you were going to hug it or shoot it. So there was a distinct possibility that you whistled to bring a dog in to
I
shoot
did it for dramatic effect. I never would have shot it.
Okay.
I didn't even have a gun on me, so how would I have shot it?
Okay. Yeah. So you're just acting.
But and Lisa would have divorced me if
All right. Well, we're
I
starting
shot
off the
a
show.
dog.
We saved a dog, Tommy.
There we go. That's a good start.
Did you hug the dog?
I did. I put him in my car, drove him to the vet, everything. He was awesome.
And no chip?
No chip.
Okay, listeners, let's get those dogs and
But your
cats
personal
chipped.
car, not your police car, correct?
My personal car.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just
And he
check.
knew what was, or she knew it was a female. I opened my tailgate, jumped right in like he owned it, or she owned it.
Like it.
Let's get those dogs chipped, people. Let's get them chipped.
Yep. Brighter side of blue advice.
We're
Get
way.
your dog checked.
This is crazy. We're way off already.
No, but we're getting right back on. Hey,
Bring us-
our Melissa Doss guest, her aunt Nancy Brannon, who went missing 37 years ago. It's the Brighter Side of Blue's first cold case, and we promised our listeners we're going to keep you posted. We're going to put the horsepower of the Brighter Side of Blue behind it and see what we can shake up. It's just so interesting, and a shout out to all the listeners. And right before we started this particular recording, we get a phone call, and we've now identified two of Nancy Brandon's co-workers that were actually with her the night of November 24th, 1986, at the Halftime Saloon, at that happy hour.
Unbelievable.
We haven't had a chance to
We
reach
had
out to them.
a couple others that came forward too. That again, we got some questions for them. We don't want to say anything what they've said because we haven't talked to them yet. They all just came in since we've posted that, which
Yep.
is 3 days ago.
I got to clear some up too. It was about the birth control pills, and a listener actually told me, and I thought the same thing because I actually listened back to the podcast to see how stupid I sound.
Yep, pretty stupid.
I know. So I thought the same thing when we talked about it. It was dismissed that she was pregnant, but they said that they found the November pills in her car, I guess, that were filled. So this is the end of November, so if those pills were filled, it means she wasn't taking them, and it's very likely or highly likely she could have been pregnant and gives the guy more incentive.
And what we did find out though is that the two people that were with her that night have not been interviewed by the police, which is highly unusual.
It's unusual, and we're going to talk to them. We're going to put them to our guy and see if we can get some traction with this. One of the things that we literally 20 minutes ago we get this phone call, listeners.
Right.
So we don't think we're not taking it seriously, but we are. But we're interested in a statement that Nancy Brannon made to some of the people at the happy hour about having to leave to go to play some softball. It was November. I guess there were indoor leagues back then, so that could have been possible. But we have learned that she was an avid softball player and played a lot of co-ed softball. So we're going to do some digging, and we'll probably be able to find this out. But if there's any listener that knows a league or a team that Nancy Brannon played for back then, that it'd help us.
Yes. Just following up on a little information. Don't want to put too much out there because we really don't know exactly what's going on.
But what we did just talk about before the show, and producer John, I think you agreed with this, is that this is our first cold case, and we're gonna take all of our listeners along for the ride
And we want the response from them too.
Well, yeah,
everybody needs to put their detective shoes on and say, I need to find something out.
Let's make this happen. And so
Absolutely.
you're going to go along for the ride, and we're going to be as transparent. We just told you what we'd learned half an hour ago. We got some coworkers that were with her tonight. She went missing, and it came from listeners. They were all avid listeners that called in. So
There's a lot of
you're going for the ride with us,
Yep,
listeners.
a lot of gumshoe detectives out there. Got
Everybody
their
wants
theories.
it, yeah.
Everybody's got a theory right now too.
Yeah,
Believe
it's
those
interesting.
ourselves. So
So thank you for that, and keep it coming in. Keep the feedback coming in, and we'll go from there.
Speaking of the feedback, the listeners, come on. I mean, the response to our last couple shows has been outrageously good. And when people walk up to us, and I was at a bar the other night, and with my boy Woody, of course. And,
that's a shocker.
And somebody came up and says, "Oh, you're the podcast guy," and then that, then got into, you ought to do this, and you ought to do this, and you ought to interview this guy, and actually came up with some good ideas, and we just love that feedback, and it means a lot to us, and and we'll take criticism as well as the good stuff. What do you want more of? What do you want? And we'll listen to all of them.
Oh, 100%. And we did start a separate line for critiquing JJ because that was filling up our inbox.
Right. So we have a specific JJ
number
critique.
for JJ. But
He's over there texting now. You
No,
need
I'm
to
just
fuck
looking
something
at,
up soon.
I was asking to add to the conversation that I've gotten a bunch of text messages from people I haven't heard from saying that they like the podcast.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Jesse Finney was one. Kenny Lambert, Chopper to Copper, retired lieutenant. He said he's addicted to the thing.
How about the,
He'll deny that.
The Newport Beach in California.
Oh, right.
You got to reach out from one of the officers out there. What was his name?
Steve Sorberson.
Sorberon.
Sorberon. We can clean
That's
this up
awesome.
for you. Can you clean it? Steve Sorberon. And I went out there to visit my daughter. He was walking the beat with some other police officers. And, of course, I had to say hi to him, told him about the podcast. He was interested. I gave him my contact. He reached out and then texted me a week later saying he loves the podcast.
that's really cool.
That is. And he did say, I think JJ mentioned that he said that Woody was one of his favorite.
He said he said he did say that.
That's good. I like the listener that sent a text that said they hope that Bud Light gets a hold of us sooner than later to sponsor the show. And
We'll take
producer John
any
is.
sponsors
You know how
we
tough
can
he
get.
gets now because Dana White's picked it up and run with it, so he's all like,
Right.
"Yeah, we need to be the Bud Light guys."
Well, we do. Well, hey, producer John never winked.
I know
Through
he
all the
didn't.
controversy,
Hey.
he stayed strong to Bud Light.
Why should I deprive myself of something I enjoy because some executive made a mistake?
I agree.
I didn't pass up on one Bud Light the whole time all those boycotts were going on. So
All I said is for us being from St. Louis, a lot of people we know work there, so that's why I continue to drink it because it was hurting the.
It's employing
the
our listeners.
Well, and then we
as
talked
a-
about the Guns and Hoses.
Yeah.
I mean, that whole organization was started by a distributorship with Jerry Clinton.
Jerry
And then-
Clinton.
Hey, let's be clear. We're not sponsored by Bud Light right now because
That's all right.
It sounds like.
But we're trying.
We're damn
We're
right
trying. This is a reach out to the corporate sponsorship.
It's a shout out,
Yeah.
If you want to hear JJ mess up some commercials on your part,
Right.
come sponsor us.
Exactly.
JJ the Butcher.
I'm not talking to you. I'm gonna. My lawyer will be speaking with you soon, though.
So the other thing with the listeners is that we get so many ideas to have this guy on and have that guy on, and by far the most requested person to have on is Joe Burgoon, who is a retired homicide, are affectionately known as like the godfather of homicide of St. Louis. And we are so looking forward to having him on next week to interview him. I don't know when the exact podcast will air, but we're having him in. And who else we having in, Danny?
I don't know. You didn't set this up well enough
Bill,
for me.
Bill McClellan.
Bill
Bill
McClellan.
McClellan. Yeah, and I played tennis
Tommy,
with
I listened
Bill.
to you.
Thanks.
Right.
I listened to you, Tommy.
Yeah, Bill
I
McClellan.
threw you a zinger, huh?
Well, you caught me off guard.
You know how we have that text thread, right?
Yeah.
We have all the things that we're going to do, and we move
Yeah.
back and forth.
No, it's my fault.
So apparently you don't.
No, I read it. You just caught me off guard, and I apologize.
does anybody need another Bud Light?
No, I'm good.
Bud Light.
I'm good now. I'm back. Yeah, we're going to have Bill McClellan on, another St. Louis legend. Well, what'd you say we should name these shows? Some of the Legend series?
Well, if you think about legends, look at the people we've had on already. Jerry Lachenicht, Joe Spieth. Joe Spieth Sr., we haven't even heard any of his stuff yet.
Harry Hager.
Harry Hager. I mean, now you're talking
Woody.
Joe Burgoon. Woody. And Woody's a legendary bullshitter.
Yeah.
And now you're talking about Bill McClellan and Joe Burgoon. I mean, what a ride this has been. And the response from all of our listeners has been incredible. And we just keep wanting to hear from you guys. Again, a lot of it's been positive, and some of it's, has critiqued us a little bit. And we do take that, too. So
Yeah.
it's been awesome. It's been a hell of a ride so far for 1 month.
Well, we're going to keep it going. We're gonna keep it
Absolutely.
going.
And
least
we're
until-
not going away.
At
We're going to
least-
keep them
We're
coming.
going to keep this going until the cold case is solved, at least, right?
Well, come on, listeners. Put us out of
JJ's
business.
fired, by the way. Isn't that what you decided last week? Is that once we solve this, we better solve it quick because JJ's about to get fired?
Exactly.
Guys, I'm like
Did you make
guys
up that
less
dog story?
and less. You can cut the dog story. You can cut me all out. I'm quitting.
Is that dog story
There
real?
we go again. Look out for the F bombs.
No. I
F-bombs.
learned that. Did I curse it all this time? I said
Not yet.
Yeah, in the beginning.
JJ, how are your guys from last night? Another turned over mobile reserve vehicle.
Oh, that's what you didn't get into. Was that?
no.
Well, let's get into that story with the mobile reserve last Monday.
First off,
I just asked him a question about last
I'm going to answer that.
We'll answer that later.
I'm going to answer it now. They're fine. They're doing
Anybody need
good.
a Bud Light?
Hey, they're good,
I
Danny.
could use one, yes.
They're lucky. They're very lucky, and getting text messages and phone calls now. But anyway, you can cut all that out. They flipped their car, got T-boned.
Quit saying that. Of the cutting and all that shit out.
Oh, well, just cut that out too. But seriously, they got T-boned.
JJ, so tell us a little bit. Your guys all right from
Let's
last
get
night?
back on
They
track.
are
What happened
banged
last
up. They went through an intersection, T-boned them, flipped them up on their roof. Another scary thing when you hear one of your officers say, "We need supervisors up here, an ambulance that's been in an accident." They were pulled out by the other officers, banged up, and I think one got a stitch in one finger, and the other is got some concussion. But I think they're going to be okay. They'll be off for a little while.
2 weeks.
And
in 2
Mez
weeks-
Harris, which if that was his wife, I'd say find another line of work. He was in an accident in November, and he was in also almost hit. He was sideswiped standing outside a car, got knocked down, but wasn't injured. And he got hit in the head with a pipe last summer, chasing a guy. A guy turned around, cracked him with a pipe, gave him a concussion. So the nurse actually recognized him when he walked in. I swear. She goes, "You're back," and he goes, "Yeah, I was in an accident again." She goes, "Man," but she recognized him. That's crazy.
Now,
He's bad luck.
how about the story from last Monday?
Last Monday, and I got to go back and talk about the criminal mindset. I think criminals they don't wake up and say, "I'm going to commit a crime today," but if one presents itself, they're
They're on it.
They're on it.
They're on it.
So yeah, Mobile Reserve, they tried to stop a car for traffic violations or something, and it took off. It got spiked by another Mobile Reserve officer named Michael Hines. Spiked the car. It went down the street, kind of lost its as it made a left turn, kind of lost control, hit a curb, and then he jumped out and took off running. And there was a delay with the policemen showing up because they backed off it. But a guy who was an opportunist, a civilian, decided to videotape it. He sees the car. Guy run from it, so he knows something up. So he starts videotaping a car. And another silver car made a left, going past him, busts a U-turn, goes back, pulls up next to the car.
The car that you were chasing originally.
Yes,
That
sir.
people got out and ran from.
But the gal jumps out of her car. She runs around, gets into the car that was there, grabs a black bag, and jumps back in her car, makes a left. As she makes a left, the police car, the Mobile Reserve car, pulls in and pulls up next to the car that is abandoned. The guy yells out the window who's videotaping, it's all on videotape, says, "Hey, the gal just grabbed something, a black bag out of that car and jumped in her car and made the left in front of you." So they quickly, just did a U-turn, Jeff Stoll and Terrence Ruffin. They went after her and stopped her. And they said that she was probably going to take off, but it got stuck behind traffic in a bus, so they got her out. What she did is she grabbed the bag, she threw it in her, dumped the contents in her personal bag, which had a gun in it. So she confessed to everything. They get her out of the car, find 3 types of drugs, and a pistol. So she gets charged 3 times for VMC.
So she had the pistol,
had a pistol already.
but then added the dope on top of the pistol.
Right. And
That's
so
a good
now
move.
she's got a, so
Solid.
she gets charged with the 3 drugs and the pistol. They catch the guy in a foot pursuit. He gets charged for the drugs because they were his to begin with. He gets 3 charges of VMCSL and felony fleeing. So when I'm watching the video of this guy, and I'm saying, I thought it was an in-car camera, a police car. I go, who's videotaping this? They go, there's some guy just did it. And he yelled at us to go get him. That is incredible. And she did not know the guy.
She had no idea who
No.
these people were. She just saw a car that was successfully abandoned from the police,
Right.
and took the drugs out of it.
The the greatest part is she's like drove real slow, and like you just tell her mind is like thinking.
Right.
And she busts a U-turn, pulls up, and then gets out as fast as she can, runs in, and is like lickety split, grabs that bag, and jumps in her car and takes off right in front of the police car. So she thought she was
That's
getting
great.
away with it. If that guy wasn't Joe Citizen, wasn't videotaping it, she would have been sky free with all the 3 different types of drugs.
Was there any fentanyl in there? Do you know?
There was fentanyl, cocaine, and I don't remember.
Ecstasy.
Ecstasy, yeah, exactly.
There you go.
3 types.
I'm familiar with my drugs.
Yeah, she was. No, there's no weed in
That
there.
they got right now. I'm telling you, she didn't wake up thinking she was going to commit a crime that day. Maybe she did, but most likely she saw an opportunity and took it. And she had a long history of arrests, so it wasn't her first day on the job. Now that caught me by surprise.
That was good, producer.
Yeah,
John.
that's a good story. I mean,
That's a really good story.
Yes,
You guys,
great.
when your guys keep their cars on the wheels and not on the roof, they do great work.
and Major Benoist hates it when I call them my guys. For some reason, he always gives me trouble joking. So the Mobile Reserve officers did this. So they're not.
Well, they
my-
are your guys.
Well, not to Pierre.
Just like our listeners are our people. They're my
listeners.
people.
Pierre, if you listen to this podcast, I don't know if you know how to figure out how to watch a podcast, but if you do,
Right, they're my people.
They're my people.
My guys, my people.
Our listeners' people are our people,
Damn, that's why we want them to keep telling people.
so we get
Then
more people.
And get
Yeah.
your dog chipped.
And get your dog chipped. You know, one thing that bothers me about producer John,
He's funnier than all of us.
well, he is smarter than all of us in separate one regard, is that he has never, ever diversified from Bud Light. Like he
We're back on the Bud Light.
well, I don't know.
We're
Because
getting
he
this-
just
we're getting the
he just took
sponsorship
his
come hell or high
well,
water.
he just took a sip and it just irritated me.
Irritated you?
Well, because he's never. I mean, I brought a 12-pack of Busch Light up one time, and he gets up and leaves and grabs a 12-pack of Bud Light because he won't drink anything but Bud Light, nothing but Bud Light. Period. And it just irritates
Well, I
me.
can remember when we all met, before the podcast, and when this controversy was going on, and I don't know that we were all pleased with that he was drinking Bud Light because
No.
we felt differently. And then when he told us why he kept drinking Bud Light, we're like,
Yeah.
let's drink some Bud Light.
I find him stubborn and not very diverse.
I found the fact that I found it.
I call it
nice.
loyalty, and I took a lot of flack for months.
It wasn't loyalty; it was loyalty to yourself.
Yeah,
I'm
loyalty
saying
to yourself.
This is what I do.
That's what I'm talking about. and if Bud Light would become a sponsor, I'd be more loyal to them. But I'm loyal to myself. But I love Bud Light. I drink it every day, and I think everybody should go out and buy a 6-pack.
Right.
Everybody who's listening to this.
Yeah.
See,
Once again,
there we go. Bud Light, first corporate sponsor. We're going after it.
Yeah, right.
We're going after it hard.
Will I get paid then?
Yeah. No. Anyway, so
You're still fired. If we start making money, you're really fired.
I've never seen a guy that's on double secret probation start making demands.
Hey, when I know when you lock the door when I come here, that it's over. But I can't get in. I know it's well, it was a good run while it lasted.
No, that's good.
You know what other listener we heard from was Mary Beth Carr.
Wow.
And Mary Beth was mentioned in the Randy Sassinger.
She's another
episode.
legend. She's another
She
legend.
is a legend
Yes,
because she's
she is.
behind,
Right.
and she is the criminal analysis or
Analyst.
forensic analyst. Been in our lab for 30, 35 years, at least. And she's been involved. All these cases you've heard about, from the Southside Rapist to Mari Travis. I'm sure Joe Burgoon's going to talk about several cases that she was the one analyzing the evidence. And she had mentioned that she would love to hear from Joe Burgoon, and I just emailed her back saying,
He's coming
You're
on.
reading her mind. He's coming on.
Hey, Tom, you know how she heard about the podcast?
How's that?
I told her about it.
See? That's not
Did you pull her over?
Yeah, Mobile Reserve pulled her over, told her about the podcast.
2 degrees from JJ. Everything's 2 degrees from JJ.
Well, I mean, you knew that. You weren't going to give me
We're in California now. We're in California now because of JJ.
Yeah.
That's right.
Newport Beach.
Steve Sorberson.
Sorberon.
We're down in Naples, Florida. So we're coast to coast now. We're coast to coast.
262 cities we're in. It's on
Really?
the statistics. 262 cities. Now, they do break St. Louis up into different cities, but
Yeah. But we're in 262 cities, Bud Light.
I believe we have some Canadian listeners too.
Canadian, Jamaica. I don't know if we're in Jamaica. I think one of our fans might have been visiting Jamaica. But we've
No,
had
we're
some
taking
downloads.
Jamaica.
We're
No,
taking Jamaica.
we're taking Jamaica.
Colombia.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Columbia, Missouri,
No. No.
The country?
Not Colombia. The
the country.
country of Colombia. I don't know who we know out there. It might be
Right.
El Chapo. Might have heard we're talking.
I'm
about.
guessing it's
That's
a DE
true.
agent.
I was thinking it's a
one of his
DEA agent.
people. One
Yeah.
of his people might be in Colombia listening to us.
They know Jack Riley's coming on.
Yep. And then we are just to talk about that. Yeah, we're having Jack Riley on. A lot of people have been requesting. Joe Burgoon was the top request. I would say the El Chapo thing is the second most requested thing. When you guys are going to talk about El Chapo?
Okay.
So bringing it to you, and I don't know how we're going to cut this all up, but move it around. I thought we had some good shit here.
Yeah, we do, and we got
Yes.
more coming in. So coming up, we're going to be releasing our Colonel John Frank, Commissioner of Police hostage story.
So a little bit behind this is that we taped this a lot earlier, trying to set up how desperate Tony Dinelli was, or when he took Commissioner Frank, John Frank's dad, hostage. What state of mind he was in, and I think we got too tied up into naming the corporations and who was all involved in this
Financial
pension scandal
crimes and all that.
And then JJ's over there texting while we're doing this stuff.
It was not. But I do believe that man was desperate and he thought that he was innocent.
Absolutely.
100%.
And he had reason to do what he
Well,
did.
we
Felt
were
like.
babbling, and I'm glad you're going to clean it up, and we'll clean it
No,
up.
it's not cleaning it up so much, but I think, and we've said so many times on other episodes, is we like to bring you the personal side or an insight that you've never heard from an investigation or from whatever we're bringing to you before. And what we had the pleasure of doing that night that we taped this is we had not only John, obviously John was there, but his brother Joe, and we had Tony Lachenicht, who was part of the hostage response team with us. And it gives you a real personal insight, and what you're going to hear coming up is a real personal insight of when this hostage thing's going on is from people that were involved in it. You know, and yourself, Danny, you were involved in it, and you're going to hear a lot because you were friends of the family from a very young age, and that personal side of the hostage taking, and again, The Negotiator was the movie, The Negotiator, with Kevin Spacey and Samuel Jackson, was based off of this. And what we tried to do in the first show was really get into why he was all that Tony Dinelli was desperate. And we were naming all the financial agencies that were involved.
Yeah, I get
and
you.
the pensions and basically what we're going to just set up is that it was.
You know, as far as our purposes go, I think we should. Obviously, the listener needs to know that there was an investigation going on. People were stealing from the police pension fund. My dad, being part of the police board, got suspicious, and really up until toward the end, Tony Dinelli was working with my dad to help.
Right.
They're on the same team. They're friends, and they met all the time. But as the case went on, everybody else involved, these people, these police and non-police, started pleading guilty, and Tony was the last man standing in this whole thing, and I think he just really needed to get out. And people that I've talked to since that knew Tony really well is he loved being a policeman, and he wanted his brother and sister police officers to know that at least in his mind he didn't do anything wrong, and he was. And
well, and then part of that, and that's a great setup, because part of the whole thing is that the stealing from the pension system started in 1982. Tony Donnelly didn't get involved into the pension system until 1984, and he ran on and he tried to get involved in the pension system because he didn't agree with what they were doing.
Yes.
So this was part of it, and then when he first came on, he was working with your father to bring light to the things that these companies were doing with the and they didn't know exactly what they were doing with the stealing and all that. And again, we're not going to get into all that. But he brought light to that, and he was working with your father when he first got there. And then it went sideways because there's a lawyer involved, and his name was Don Anton. And he was a high-rolling lawyer. It had nothing to do with the pension system, but he was an influence maker. And Tony Donnelly believed he needed an influence maker to get promoted. Mm-hmm. So even though Tony thought he was, and Tony did not, the government could not prove that he took any money from the scandals. But what they could prove is that he was lying about his relationship with Don Anton.
Yeah.
And when you get involved in all that, you get involved in the word conspiracy. We all know that word. And when you get involved in a conspiracy, you catch the same charges as everybody else within the conspiracy.
And Joe Frank does a good job of clearing that up.
When you're going to hear Joe Frank, and you're going to hear a lot of personal stuff, which, again, I just loved it when I was listening to it, is there's the personal aspect of John, yourself, and Joe Frank. And then Tony Lachenicht, when he was as part of the hostage team. These are all people that were involved, and it was... like I said, when I listened to it, it was pretty neat just because of the personal aspect of it.
Yeah, I think the true crime stories that we tell on this podcast, anybody can go on the internet and look up the basic facts. What we try to bring is insider, perspective, what it was like to be there, what went on behind the scenes, and things like with Southside Rapists. Talking to a victim and to Randy Sassinger, who broke the case. That's what people don't get by looking it up on Google.
Yep,
absolutely. And then with where we started, what you're going to hear coming up is just a recording of us a long time ago when we first started this.
Yeah.
More coming in. Thanks, listeners. Thanks for everything you're doing. Keep the information coming in on our cold case.
And enjoy the the conversation with John Frank, Joe Frank, and Tony Lachenicht about the hostage taking of Commissioner Frank, the father of John.
Producer John Frank.
Yeah.
He produced Producer John.
Enjoy. Leave it there.
Peace.
That was a good one.